The New Orleans Pelicans need to make up their mind. Just 3 days ago, it was reported that they were highly unlikely to trade Zion Williamson, and now it's coming out that nobody is untouchable. Yeah, I wonder why that is. Now, I don't really want to get into that story because it's some pretty serious allegations and it's still under investigation. But I know even before these allegations, many Heat fans wanted nothing to do with Zion because of all the concerns surrounding his weight and his health. I know not all Heat fans are out on him, but at this point, I certainly understand why many want Miami to stay as far away from him as possible. However, I cannot lie. I am still a little bit intrigued about what Zion Williamson can look like once he gets a little snort of that Heat culture, baby. If anyone can get Zion in shape, it's the Miami Heat. And now you're talking about a guy who is a mismatched nightmare on a nightly basis and truly has the potential to be a 1A on a championship team. Because let's just look at the numbers. As a 20-year-old kid, which it sounds very weird to call him a kid because physically he was a monster. But at 20 years old in the NBA, he averaged a dominating 27 points per game and 7 rebounds on a wild 61% efficiency from the field. We don't need to look at his free throw percentage or three-point percentage. I don't care about that because he almost never missed from the field. And even if you want to go to this most recent season, just last year, he still averaged 25 points per game, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists on 57% from the field. I understand it was only in 30 games, but we know what his limitations are currently in terms of his health. But what we also know is that he is a physically unstoppable, dominant offensive force. We know this. But other reasons that I like him includes his defensive potential. Obviously, he has the physical tools to be incredible on that side of the ball. He's averaged over a steal for the last few seasons, and I think he can be a great on-ball defender because of his lateral quickness. I think he can be a great shot blocker because of his verticality. When you have the kind of tools that he has, there really is no ceiling to what you can do on the defensive end, especially if you're in a Heat system that is going to instill that kind of culture in you. I mean, remember that play that Zion had in college where the opponent was shooting a corner three and Zion was in the paint, but he was still athletic enough to go out and block the shots? Imagine that in the Heat system. The defensive potential is there. In addition to that, I think he can be a pretty good point guard in this league. We started seeing some point Zion over the last few seasons, and he had relative success. The Pelicans were playing well. They were playing better, at least. His assist number started to go up. And when I was watching point Zion, it kind of reminded me of another guy that I know all Heat fans loved, which was Point Justice. Y'all remember that?
More importantly, I hope y'all remember to subscribe because 56.7% of y'all are not yet. Make sure to hit that button. I do appreciate your support. Now let's get back into the video.
That was fun for a long time, and there's some similarities there. You know, you got Zion and Justice Winslow, two guys that are maybe too small or too short to be true power forwards or big men, but not great enough shooters to be a guard or a small forward. So they kind of play this hybrid role because they still have the ball handling skills and vision to be a guard, and it was amazing. Point Justice was really fun for the Miami Heat for a long time, and I think Point Zion could be an elevated version of that. And then the last reason why I would love Zion here is because of his ability to get to the free throw line. I'm going to give you a second here. Name one player on the Miami Heat who can get to the free throw line consistently. Oh, wait. That's longer than a second because I know you need some time to think of someone because there is no one. There was one. His name was Jimmy Butler. But that left when we sent him over to Golden State, and now we got nobody who can get to the line late in games, really slow the game down, get a couple of easy buckets. That's what Zion Williamson can do. I understand his free throw percentage isn't the best, but it's also not terrible. He's at 69 nice percent. It's not great, but before this past season, he shot over 70% for the previous two. He was around 70% the year before that. So he's not a guy that's like, I don't know, prime Andre Drummond out there, Clint Capella, Andres Biedrins, who else? Chuck Hayes. He's not those guys. I don't really think he's a guy that you would necessarily hack just because he is close to 70%. And the fact that he can get there over 8 times a night, something that he's done pretty consistently throughout his career, that's the guy that I think the Miami Heat need. But now let's take a look at his contract situation where he's getting quite a lot of money for the next 3 seasons. Next year, he'll be making $39.4 million. The year after that, he's getting $42.1 million. And then the final year of his deal, he's getting about $44.8 million at the age of 27 years old. So he'll still be relatively young by the time his contract ends. And whether his contract is considered good value right now, well, it depends. Like I said, it's kind of a lot of money, but it could still be good value if he stays healthy and continues giving the same level of production that he has been, because other players with similar numbers are getting paid closer to $50 million or $60 million. So it could be good value. But if he continues to get hurt and not be available, well, then that much money for that amount of years, it really could turn into one of the worst contracts in the entire NBA. But now let's get into this mock trade that I cooked up. And I first want to preface this by saying it was very hard to create this because I truthfully have no idea what the hell Zion's trade value is right now, because I could see it being very high because he's shown that he can be a superstar and he's still very, very young, former first pick in the draft. So I could see it being high trade value, or I could see it being next to nothing because he almost never plays and he's on a massive contract and has all this other stuff hanging over his head. So I really have no idea. That being said, I cooked up a massive 14 trade, which includes the Miami Heat getting Zion Williamson, the New Orleans Pelicans getting Duncan Robinson, PJ Washington, Shake Milton, 1 first-round pick from the Lakers, and 1 first-round pick from the Miami Heat. The Dallas Mavericks receive Andrew Wiggins and Gabe Vincent, and the Los Angeles Lakers receive Daniel Gafford and Caleb Martin. Now, I want to start with the Mavericks side of things because I think it's pretty easy from their perspective. They're literally trading no picks. So the question comes down to, would they rather have Gabe Vincent and Andrew Wiggins or PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford? I understand Gafford and PJ are pretty great players, but they're both expiring contracts. And I think Daniel Gafford specifically could walk in the offseason just because I don't think he's going to get a lot of playing time next season. Think about all the bigs that Dallas has now. Their power rotation is stacked between Anthony Davis and Derek Lively and now Cooper Flagg. I'm not really sure how many minutes Daniel Gafford will get at all. So you're getting some value for him. And then also Andrew Wiggins, I think, is a really decent upgrade over PJ Washington. Similar type of players in terms of guys that can space the floor, play off ball in that regard, and also be a versatile defender. But I think Andrew Wiggins has a higher ceiling and he's way more proven because we've seen him thrive in this role on a championship team back when he was with Golden State. He was an all-star starter and he was pretty incredible in the finals. And now Dallas, they would be able to put together a very great starting lineup of Kyrie Irving, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, Cooper Flagg, and Anthony Davis. I mean, that is just stacked. And Wiggins, he's now like the 4th or 5th option offensively, which compared to him in Miami, where he was 2nd at most of the times and it wasn't great, he'll just be a lot better in Dallas under this role, and he can play off ball when Kyrie's ball handling, and he can help defend because Klay and Kyrie aren't defenders at this stage of their career, which is also where Gabe Vincent comes in. Don't sleep on that pickup for Dallas because right now they literally have no backup point guards. So what better guy to get than a guy like Gabe who has playoff experience? We saw him with the Miami Heat. He was pretty incredible in a lot of those playoff runs. And as the Dallas Mavericks team that's trying to win it all next year, you're going to need a guy who could be a playoff riser like Gabe Vincent. And then his on-court fit is great too because he can be an off-ball shooter, again, when Kyrie is ball handling, or he can be that defender to play next to Klay Thompson or Kyrie. So overall, this seems like a home run, no doubt about it deal for the Dallas Mavericks. Now, for the Pelicans side of things, I don't think they would want Andrew Wiggins. That's why I had to bring in the 3rd team in Dallas to begin with. Just because Wiggins is already 30 and he's making a lot of money for a few more seasons. And I don't really see why New Orleans would want to take that on as a part of a rebuild. So instead, they're getting 2 expiring contracts in Duncan Robinson and PJ Washington. And also, they're getting Shake Milton, but his contract is so small, it's kind of negligible at this point. But PJ Washington is only 26, so he could be a guy that I could definitely see New Orleans wanting to keep because Trey Murphy's 24, Herb Jones is 26, DeJounte Murray's 28, so PJ fits that timeline pretty well. They could have a lineup of DeJounte Murray, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, PJ Washington, and Yves Missy. I mean, defensively, the versatility in that lineup is insane. They would also have CJ McCollum, but at 30 years old, I don't expect him to be there next year anyways. So he could be a guy that they could flip for more picks also. And actually, in the original version of this trade, I didn't even have the Lakers. I had Gafford going to the Pelicans, and I said that Gafford was a guy that they could flip at the deadline. But that's when I started thinking, what teams could they flip Gafford to? And we know the Lakers need a center. That's why I just added them to this trade right away. But as far as the draft capital, they are getting the 2 first-round picks here. I think for everything surrounding Zion, I think 2 first-round picks is fair value. I mean, if they really need another one, Miami would have an additional pick that they can throw in if they needed to. So now New Orleans will be getting 3 total, 1 from the Lakers, 2 from the Heat. But for a guy in Zion Williamson with that contract and the concern surrounding his availability, I think getting a nice young player in PJ Washington, all that expiring money, and then a couple of first-round picks, I do think that is pretty good value for Zion Williamson, all things considered. And from the Lakers side of things, I also think it's pretty simple. They're trading Gabe Vincent and a first-round pick for Daniel Gafford and Caleb Martin. We know how desperate the Lakers are for a center. They tried getting Mark Williams at the deadline, but he failed his physical, so they had no bigs beside Jackson Hayes, who was so bad that JJ Redick couldn't even play him, which means that Rudy Gobert looked like a prime David Robinson versus them in the playoffs, had like 30 points and 20 rebounds against them, and then proceeded to never score more than 5 points for like the rest of the postseason. That's how down bad the Lakers were at center. And now they're getting a guy in Daniel Gafford who could provide everything they need in terms of interior defense, rebounding, and be that lob threat for Luka Doncic. And then Caleb Martin is a guy that, like Gabe Vincent, he still has that playoff experience. We saw him be great with Miami in those runs, so he could certainly play for the Lakers as well, whether it's as a backup to like Dorian Finney-Smith or Roy Hachimura. Both of those guys are expiring contracts, so if the Lakers can't keep any of them, I do think Caleb Martin could be a nice replacement for them or play behind them. But now let's talk about the Miami Heat side of things. And Heat fans, we have to be realistic here. If you can get Zion Williamson for just Andrew Wiggins, Duncan Robinson, and 1 first-round pick, that's a trade that you make 1,000 times out of 1,000. Yes, I understand the risks associated with Zion, but for this little value, it's just something that you have to do because the Heat need to take a risk. They put themselves in this position of lacking assets relative to other teams, which is why we couldn't get a younger Kevin Durant or a Donovan Mitchell, and why we won't be in the sweepstakes for Giannis Antetokounmpo and eventually Anthony Edwards is because we'll never have enough assets to get the perfect guy. So you have to take a risk. That's one of the reasons why I think the Heat have a shot at Kevin Durant now, is because he is older. He has a flaw, meaning his trade value is not as high, meaning the Heat have a chance. So he has some baggage, and I understand that Zion Williamson has more baggage, and that's not a fat joke. I also hope that the legal stuff does get resolved. I don't want to just brush past that because it is serious. But you have to understand that right now, the Miami Heat have a rare opportunity to get a dominant physical freak, one of the most hyped up prospects to ever come out of college. You have a chance to get him on your team before he even turns 25 years old. Outside of just his availability, I understand there is some on-court concerns as well. If no other moves are made, which they probably would, like if the Heat get Zion, I can't see that being the only thing they do because they would still have 2 more tradable first-round picks and the Andrew Wiggins contract and the expiring Terry Rozier contract. So I still think they would make some more moves to round out the roster. But if not, you would have a starting lineup of Tyler Hero, Andrew Wiggins, Zion Williamson, Bam Adebayo, and Khalil Ware. There's no spacing in that front court. I get that, but maybe there is. I mean, I could be talking to Bam Adebayo being more of a floor spacer next year, meaning that guys respect his shot. I'm not saying that he's going to start taking 7 threes a game because he should not. He should still use his mid-range game, which he's been so great at. He should still use his athleticism to get to the rim. But if on certain offensive sets he could stand in the corner and actually have guys respect him and stand out there, that's all you need for spacing. You don't need Bam taking those shots. You just kind of need him standing on the exterior of the court to allow a guy like Zion Williamson to operate. So I think Bam could be more of a spacer next year. I think within a few seasons, we can really see Khalil Ware get to that point as well. And now, if you have a core of Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo, and Khalil Ware spacing the floor for Zion, that man is about to feast. So I really think there's a lot of potential with that core, which is why I would absolutely do this trade. I also want to note, too, that there is some other players on the Pelicans I know a lot of people might be interested in. So that's what I'm going to talk about in tomorrow's video. I already have a whole video ready where we're discussing Herb Jones, CJ McCollum, DeJounte Murray, Trey Murphy. So make sure y'all subscribe so you don't miss tomorrow's video. And let me know down in the comments below on this video if you like the Zion Williamson trade that I posted. And if you don't like it, what would you change? I'm very curious to hear what y'all think. Make sure to like the video and subscribe because all your support is greatly appreciated. That being said, I'll see you on tomorrow's video. Peace out, everyone.
Pull up in your city trying to get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.